Welcome back. Today we are making these delicious Bailey's cupcakes. So to start from the beginning, we're adding 1/4 cup of warm water into a large bowl, followed by 1/2 cup of Bailey's Irish cream. So this is where the real fun starts. Just kidding, because most of the alcohol in this will bake out, but don't worry, there's lots of other Baileys in this recipe. Next, we're adding 1/3 cup of vegetable oil or any flavorless oil, followed by 1/3 cup of melted chocolate. You can use dark or milk that has been melted and cooled for about 10 minutes. Then we're adding 2 large eggs that are at room temperature, and we're going to give all of those ingredients a quick whisk until they're fully combined. The mixture gets a little bit thick at the end once everything is mixed together, but don't worry, that's how it's supposed to be. Once that mixture was nice and smooth, it's time to sift in our dry ingredients. So we're adding 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 3/4 cup of granulated sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, followed by 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then our last dry ingredient we add is 1/3 cup of baking cocoa. So this is unsweetened cocoa. So we'll give this a good sift just to make sure that no clumps get into our cupcakes. And it really is important when you're baking with cocoa. A lot of times you can see there are some clumps, and this makes it so much easier to get a nice smooth batter without overmixing it. So now that our ingredients are sifted into our wet ingredients, I'm giving this a quick stir and fold with a rubber spatula, and I'm going to mix just until the ingredients are combined. So you don't want to overmix your batter because that can lead to dense cupcakes. Our last 2 ingredients are a teaspoon of white vinegar and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now I know white vinegar can seem like a strange ingredient, but it's the acid that you need to activate the baking soda that's included in this recipe. So it's just going to help everything rise up deliciously and have a wonderful texture. So now that our batter is ready and our cupcake tin is lined, we're going to use a cookie scoop just to make sure that we get the same amount of batter into each cupcake liner. It also just makes it easier to get the cupcake batter into the pan. So we're heating those at 350 degrees for about 18 to 19 minutes. And while our cupcakes bake, we're going to work on the Bailey's frosting. So we've added 2 sticks of unsalted butter into our mixer here, and we're adding 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. We give that a quick mix just to get it nice and smooth, and then we slowly start to incorporate 3.5 cups of powdered sugar. As you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're mixing on low so that you don't get any explosions of powdered sugar. It's also important to scrape around the sides of the bowl and the bottom of your bowl just so that everything gets mixed together properly. Now it's time for the Baileys. So we're adding in 2 tablespoons of Baileys, and you can add a little bit more if you want, but it will change the consistency of the frosting, so just keep an eye on that. You can see the mixture looks a little bit curled at first, but as you add in the rest of the powdered sugar, it comes together and is really smooth, so don't worry. So at this point in time, I noticed my frosting was a little bit thick, so I added 1 tablespoon of heavy cream, which the recipe calls for. But if you do want to make it a bit more boozy, you can always swap out this tablespoon of heavy cream with another tablespoon of Bailey's. So once I added that in, I mixed this on low for about a minute until the frosting was super smooth and a nice consistency that would be perfect for frosting. So you can see it's thick, but definitely pipeable. Another way to add more Baileys into this recipe is to poke holes on top of your cupcake and add about 1/2 teaspoon of Baileys over the top. I used a spoon here, but in hindsight, a pastry brush would definitely work better and probably get more of the Baileys into the cupcake. That step is totally optional, but it definitely makes the cupcake seem more boozy. So I've added a small dollop of frosting on top of our cupcakes, and now I'm just dunking it in a bowl of chocolate sprinkles. So you don't have to stress too much about that first dollop, but the second one you really want to be nice and perfect. So I added a large dollop on top using an Ateco 869, which I love because it makes these cupcakes look so fancy when they really don't require too much effort. So I was obsessed with the way these tasted. I ended up actually eating 3 of them, which was not my finest moment, but they were totally worth it. If you guys want to create your own Bailey's chocolate cupcakes, you can find the recipe for these up on Chelsweets.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully, I'll see you guys again soon.